Tangent over here. And then we have Edmund as well, who is one of our DataCove social engineers, and we have Ira Dixon, who is our DataCove social expert over here. So Ira is going to be running the webinar here for you folks today, and I'll let you go ahead and get started.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Hi, everyone. My name is Ira, and I'm actually excited today to chat with you guys about social media and open records compliance, and exactly what that means for government agencies at the federal, state, and local level. So I think last year I went to 12 conferences, had a bunch of speaking engagements, and all these conferences focus on government agencies, what services they can use to improve transparency. And one of the focal points was open records. And there was a lot of confusion around it. People weren't exactly sure what open records meant, and if they did, they weren't sure what services they needed to comply. So my hope is that you leave today with many of your existing questions answered, and at the very least, have a greater understandings of the mechanisms behind website and social media archiving. So I know that the subject of compliance can be somewhat dry and somewhat uneventful. So with that being said, let's take a look at the first slide. So everyone here knows that digital communication has greatly helped agencies connect with citizens and create what I like to call a sense of transparency in government. But it has inevitably also caused a massive increase in electronic public records. So this guy over here is our friend from the Buffalo Police Department. So he was a cop and was accused of stealing cocaine from the evidence room and then posting it on Vine, which is that social media platform that shared videos, which no longer exists. So it was finally realized by the department that it was a big joke. But by that time, I believe it had already been seen by over 6 million people online. Now, unfortunately, this turned into an employment case, and the officer was suspended for dishonoring the police on social media. So I just want to start off this slide just to plant the seed in your mind, get things started. This is the direction that we're going in. This is what social media looks like today, and people of all ages are using it. And it's a magnificent tool and form of communication, but government has a certain standard to adhere to, and that's why things are closely monitored, and these are things that can happen. So let's give you a little background on the companies. We've been around since 1989. Our main products are social media and email archiving. So this is a solution that would meet compliance and e-discovery needs. We have a data center in Seattle, Washington. And right now, there are over 2,000 customers currently using this service for social media. And I would say of those 2,000 plus customers, around 500 to 700 are government agencies. Just give you guys a little background there. So here are just some of the government agencies that we work with. They range from small, 500-person towns in Texas to a 500,000-person county in New York State, and everything in between. And like I said, there's approximately 500 to 700 of them that we currently work with. And this means anything from, they could be fire departments, they could be police stations, county offices, and so on and so forth. And you can see here, this kind of gives you an idea as to the the different sorts of agencies that we connect with. So let's start by just chatting a little bit about what open records compliance is. So there are two levels, and this is at the highest level, and make it the most simple as possible. We have the federal records laws, which also could be known as FOIA, as a Freedom of Information Act. Now, these laws apply to federal agencies in the United States. And basically, they require that almost every record possessed by a federal agency is disclosable to the public. Now, public records laws or open records, and there are a few different words to describe this, a few different buzzwords. This pertains to state and local government, and it requires that state and local government agencies make publicly available all the documents and public records. So basically all 50 states have these public records laws, which allow members of the public, which include non-residents, to obtain documents and other public records from a state and local government body. So state public record laws are not identical to the federal ones or the Freedom of Information Act, nor are state interpretations of, let's say, similar language in state statutes. However, they are used to, they are used to interpret similar languages in public state laws. And many of these state and local laws are very similar to FOIA. They were originally based off of them. And it's really important to know the differences between the federal records laws and between the state laws, because if you are a federal agency, you must adhere to the federal ones, and if you're state, you adhere to the state ones. So I just want to give you guys this breakdown because when I chat with government agencies, there's often confusion around which types of laws they need to adhere to. So it's important to always review the specific law and regulation you are working with before you proceed. Yeah. So what we've done here, and I encourage everyone either now or afterwards to check out this link, but we've really done the homework for you guys. And to make everyone's life easier, we've created an interactive map that lists all of the specific open records requirements for each of the 50 states. So all of the 50 states, by and large, the idea is that your online footprint, so your social media, has to be archived and preserved. Now, each state's the verbiage changes slightly. So I encourage you afterwards to go to your state. You can click directly on the interactive map through the website and actually get a full breakdown of the legislation, how it affects you, what's required from you. And if we're working with a state agency in that state, then there'll usually be a testimonial below as well. So it's a great thing to refer to, even if you're well aware, just to kind of get a refresher. So what I've done over here is I've just compiled a couple examples. So for example, this is from Washington State. So Washington State has some of the strictest adherence to their open records laws. And basically it says that all web content, which would obviously include social media. And this is kind of the format that those one pages for each of those 50 states would have. And it would include, like I said, legislation and give you kind of a breakdown as to what's required. The next one here, we've got the Illinois Freedom of Information Act and Open Meetings Act, which applies to at the state level. And this basically says public records means all records, electronic data, processing records, electronic communications. So once again, social media falls into that basket. And like I said, feel free to click around afterwards and find your state. So why do these laws exist? And I think that's a really important thing to look at. So there are two main reasons, and I'm going to read directly from this page. The first one is there's an expectation that web content, which includes social media, is both permanently valuable and accessible. And the next is that governments cannot really be open and accountable if it does not preserve and cannot find its records. So the idea of record retention comes down to transparency. It's the sense that at any time a citizen of any state in the United States can gain access to government public documents just to have a better idea as to what's going on. So this whole idea of Freedom of Information Act at the federal level and open records at the state and local level is about creating a sense of transparency within the community. And allowing citizens to have an insight into what goes on within their government. So a really key piece there. So let's look a little bit at, government websites and social media are subject to e-discovery, which we saw before, which means that they're subject to adhering to these laws and keeping their data archived. So how is this information stored properly? So there are two main pieces to that. By ensuring data integrity and data authenticity, which are the 2 points above, which are the main pieces of information that are sought after we can ensure that information is stored properly. So data integrity answers the question, how do you prove that a message has not been tampered with? So in social media, how do you prove that a post was not deleted or edited? And data authenticity speaks on, how do you prove the date and time a page was captured, or how do you prove from which URL a snapshot was taken? It's all about authenticity and integrity, figuring out how do we know that this post on this day is the original post and nothing has been altered or changed. And that ties in with transparency and the whole idea behind archiving. You want to be able to be completely transparent within your community or your government, and to do so, you need to display and have your archives saved in a manner that you can display and show integrity and authenticity. So let's talk a little bit about how does an archive, which is exactly what the DataCove offers, how does an archive fulfill open records requirements? So it does so through digital timestamps and signatures, which is the metadata. And metadata is simply data about data. And this is a pretty big buzzword, and I'm sure you guys have heard before. I hear it all the time, yet no one really understands what it means. But metadata is all about the data about data. So if you have a post online, there's always more than meets the eye. And that's what we have over here. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts to the metadata. There's the from, which is the client metadata. So the browser, the operating system, the IP address, and the user. This is all crucial information about who made a particular post, who liked a comment, who deleted a comment, and so on and so forth. It's the source. The next is the to. So the URL, the HTTP headers, the time, date, and time of request and response to a post, a comment, or anything like that. This is the to, crucial part. The next is the who. So the account owner, the bio, description, the location, and lastly the what and when. So the author, the message type, the post date and time, and so on and so forth. So like I said, metadata establishes authenticity, and it is the key piece within an archive that allow government agencies to meet their open records requirements. So yeah, it proves really crucial insight into evidence regarding this record. Now, the interesting thing is that metadata is not something that's going to be necessarily seen with the naked eye. There are systems and tools that are used to extract that data, which you don't get just by simply looking at your screen. So the next thing is, why is social media's data so hard to collect? And I bring this up because there are some government agencies that we chat with that tell us that they're currently doing social media captures manually. Now, for those of you that aren't aware, this means that someone full-time, I'm talking 24 hours, almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, is dedicated to preserving an agency's online footprint. Now, the first question that comes to mind is, how much time and energy is going into doing so? And then people ask, is there actually a need for a third-party service like Tangent to capture our posts if we're doing it ourselves? Now, the truth is there's a very high margin for error when trying to collect social media without the use of an automated tool. What if you have to process, a 1,000-page social media timeline, or a timeline of social media that has thousands of posts, right? This is things that leave a margin for error and cause issues to arise. So that if you do have an open request, can you be certain 100% that you will fulfill it by doing it manually? A lot of these agencies that we chat with have transitioned from manually to automated, not only because for financial reasons, because full-time job, someone clicking, will cost a fortune. But like I said, there's room for error. And here are a couple of examples as to why it is so hard. And the first thing is the multifaceted nature of social media. It contains images, it contains videos and comments and likes, and these are things that can change on a dime. You can have an image or that was uploaded, or a video that's uploaded, and the next day it's taken down. And unless you're on top of your game, chances are you're going to miss that. Real-time activity, right? Social media isn't real time; it happens on the fly. People don't sign off of social media, after 5 o'clock when the workday is done. People are posting all through the night and into the morning, and there are different time zones. So, it's very difficult to manually capture all the activity. Infinite scrolling is the next thing. We've all seen through Facebook, you can just infinite scroll through all your posts. It just keeps going and going and going. Next is deep link content and link shorteners, which we don't have to dive into that though, because it's a bit more technical. But the first three give you a really good idea as to how difficult it can be to capture this information manually. So let's talk a little bit about the risk of non-compliance for open records and what happens if your agency is unable to meet an open records request. So what we did is we actually compiled about 50 or 60 different agencies in the US that had faced fines and penalties over the last few years. And I'm sure that the Tangent team will be more than happy to share this document with you guys afterwards. But what you can see here are that the agencies range from fire departments all the way down to the board of a school board, a police department. If you go to the next page, actually, we've got another one. We've got counties. The fees range anywhere from, let's say, $10,000 to $2 or $3 million. Now, $2 or $3 million, and I work with government agencies all the time, could decimate an agency's budget for that year or for years afterwards. And it also, is tarnishes the image and the reputation. So it's interesting. What we've done is like I said, we've compiled all of these fines or sanctions, but then the descriptions are interesting because they contain links as well. So I encourage everyone afterwards, and we'll make use of this for all the attendees, to click around and read some of these cases. They might be very similar to cases you guys may have already experienced, or maybe experienced, or potentially will experience in the future. And you'll see that some of the examples could have been solved simply with a tool that would provide some type of archive. Now, interestingly enough, a lot of these companies or these agencies have now become customers of ours. Now, whether or not it took a large fine to do so, or whether or not it was just a long education process, we're glad to have them on board. But I wanted to give you guys some insight into it. Really can affect everyone. And we have here all the list of social media channels. You see Facebook seems to be the most popular. Here we've got Facebook again. So like I said, we'll be happy to share this with you guys afterwards and go through the whole list of 60 and see if if that provides more insight into what's going on. So let's take a look over here. This I chose because it's a bit closer to heart. Spokane County is a county we've worked with many times before. They've now become our client. But I want to go through what happened with this particular lawsuit. It's one of the 60, but I just thought it'd be a good idea to show you an example. So,
Ira, sorry to interrupt here, but
yeah,
it
sure.
looks like those slides actually aren't advancing.
Oh, which one are you guys on right now?
On the why is social media data hard to collect?
Oh, okay. Well, then I apologize, guys. Let me know if you can see this next one here. Does it work?
Let's see. Not seeing those.
Is it frozen on the why is social media data hard to collect?
It looks like it.
Okay, so let's.
Is that happening for others here? No. Yeah, it looks like it is frozen.
Okay, so let's just we'll stop sharing for a moment, and we can reshare. Just give me a moment here.
I've got in the chat here as well that
Sure.
That
apologies, guys.
We'll be able to share this as well with everyone.
All right, I'm just uploading it back again, guys. Thank you for your patience. Okay, perfect. Can you see it again?
Let's see, it's going through. There you go.
Okay, thank you guys for that. Okay, so I'll start again. So we discussed previously, we looked at this slide, which is why social media data is so hard to collect. We talked about how an automated process is a lot more efficient and leaves very small margin for error in comparison to a manual capture process. Now, this next slide talks about the risk of non-compliance for open records. So a lot of agencies that we chat with, they say, I want to see examples of agencies that have failed an audit. Because a lot of government agencies or many companies, before using this service, they feel as though there may not be a need because they haven't had any open requests yet, or perhaps they haven't failed open request or haven't been sued or audited or anything like that. And what we do is we've actually compiled a list of about 50 or 60 different government agencies in the U.S. that have faced sanctions and fines over the last few years because they have failed to properly archive their social media content. And every example has a description and a link that goes directly to that case. So I hope and I believe the Tangent team will share this document with you guys afterwards when you engage in conversation with them. And I encourage you to go through it and click on the links. Maybe your agency will appear there, and if not, you can at least have an idea as to what to expect in terms of fines or how they work, and some of the cases that are involved as well. And the amazing thing is that it affects small police stations and fire departments up to 200,000, 300,000 person counties and school boards. And some of the fines that we've seen have been anything from, let's say, $10,000 or $20,000 up to $2 or $3 million for a county or a large school board. And what I mentioned before the slide froze is that it's not just a financial issue, but it also tarnishes the reputation of a specific government agency, and it doesn't allow for transparency, which is an important part of this whole conversation. So we'll definitely share this with you guys afterwards and go through them together. I just thought it'd be a really good idea to compile as many examples as possible to share with our customers so they can have some insights into what's going on. So I decided to choose one example in particular, and this is a county that I've worked with very closely, and so it's one of the 50 or 60 that we've seen face some fines. So this is a Spokane woman, and she had been unhappy with an increase in her property taxes, and she actually won a $26,000 judgment against Spokane County that failed to provide a public record she sought as part of a series of requests. Now, this is just one example, and the $26,000 judgment dwarfs in size any type of service that I would use to archive existing social media or any online content. But I just wanted to kind of put a face to a name, so to say, because, like I said, it can affect large agencies or small ones or any of them in the middle. But the good news that we've seen is that government agencies are really starting to ask the right questions. And questions like, how do agencies handle social media? What constitutes a public record? And how are agencies storing information and have information ready if they need to release it? So we cover 15 plus social media platforms, and that includes all the regular ones you guys see here, but all the video chats, we cover them as well. We also offer coverage for enterprise social media, which are things like Yammer, Jabber, Facebook Workplace, so internal messaging systems that are used to internally to communicate with in government agencies. So I want to keep this presentation short and sweet. I'm sure everyone's quite busy, and I don't know how long people can listen to someone talk about compliance for, but the team at Tangent is well versed, educated in what's required for your state. I hope everyone takes the time today or the next few days to look at that interactive map that we had showed you guys. Find out what the legislation is for your state, and then have a conversation with someone at Tangent, and see what options are available for you guys. So yeah, that kind of sums up my presentation for today. Are there any questions? I'm more than happy to answer or do my best at answering them.
Let's see, I'll make sure that everyone is off of mute here. And if you have any questions, if for whatever reason we still can't hear you, you're more than welcome to type into the chat box there if you have any questions.
Ira, I have a question. What does it take to set up the service?
So that's a really good question. So set up the service is quick and simple, and it's usually done within one business day. And all we require from a government agency would be the list of social media URLs and the email addresses that accompany them as admins. And what we do is we simply send an email to those admins asking for permission to begin archiving. The reasons being is that all of these platforms have very strict privacy policies when it comes to giving access to a third party. So once each of those users or admin has given us access, we then begin the process. We plug into the API and extract the data, and it's continuous, nonstop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Great.
And then how long does it take to purge, or how long do you keep the data for?
So that's a really good question as well. So every state, every city, or even at the federal level, will all have different retention cycles or retention schedules. So retention schedules are how long the data is kept for. So in your discussions with a Canada representative or in your discussion with any vendor that you may be using the service, those are usually included in the contract. And depending on how long it is, it will be automatically set up so that data will be deleted or exported to you at the end of your retention cycle. So government agencies I've seen be a minimum of 1 year up until 3 years. Sometimes agencies wish to keep it forever, which in that case, we continue to do so. And I forgot to mention one thing, and I think this is pretty important. For all of you out there that are not archiving right now in terms of social media and are worried that you missed something, our tool has the ability to retroactively archive social media platforms, for the most part, entirely. So that means we can actually plug into the system and extract all the previous data that was not or has not currently been archived. So just in case that was something on your mind, I thought I'd bring it up because that has been a worry that I've heard many times before.
Perfect. Thank you. That was actually one of the questions that was typed in here from Tim. So Tim, hopefully you heard that one. Let me know. Then we have another question here from Lillian that we've typed in. She asked, can we archive to our existing DataCove email archiving appliance, or does it have to be in the cloud? And I believe that Edmund can probably take that one.
Yeah, I can definitely take that one for you guys. This DataCove Social does work with any existing DataCove appliance, as long as you have the valid maintenance and service contract, which allows you to fetch that email. So yeah, you no need to upgrade to the cloud, but it does also work with our cloud-hosted environment.
Great. And then we have Mick who asked over here, is this requirement only for government entities? Is it possible to get a list of entities required to archive?
Sorry, can you repeat that last question?
Sorry. Is this requirement only for government entities? Is it possible to get a list of entities required to archive?
Yes, so absolutely. So there are several industries in the United States, financial services being a huge one, that are all regulated by different regulatory bodies. And they have very similar regulations or laws that government agencies do. So in government, it's, like I said, at the state level and at the federal level and the local level. But that also includes education, so from kindergarten up until grade 12. So I'd be more happy to connect afterwards and can give you a list of, government agencies or other industries in the United States that have very similar regulatory bodies and legislation and laws regarding compliance archiving.
I was going to say that Mick would be happy to send you some more information after the webinar here.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Do we have any more questions from anyone? Okay, looks like no. So if that's the case, then from here on out, what I'll do is I'll make sure that everyone who's attending here gets that document that Ira was talking about, that was referring to during the webinar. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out. You'll have my email when I send you the documents. And thank you very much for attending. I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.